Alright guys, I'm going to be going through with you period 6. We're going to be going through both the flashcards and the questions to answers. I'll be letting you know which part of the review we're on when we're on it. We're not going to necessarily go completely in order, at least at the start. That's because there's two different ships that you need to know, and both of them were sunk, so it's better to talk about them side by side. Let's first start with our first flashcard, unrestricted submarine warfare. You just want to know that this is where Germany attacked all ships during World War I, even if the ship was not military. After you get down that definition, you want to look at number 4 for your questions to answer. It says, describe how the U.S. got involved in World War I. And we got involved 3 different reasons. So the sinking of the Lusitania, the Zimmermann telegram, and then Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare. That's what you want to write down for number 4. For your second flashcard for the USS Maine, the USS Maine is the cause of the Spanish-American War. It was a ship that was blown up by the Spanish that got the U.S. involved in the Spanish-American War. For that flashcard, if you just write down cause of the Spanish-American War, that will be good. If you look down at your number 1, what reason did the U.S. give for fighting in the Spanish-American War? You want to write down the USS Maine. So number 1 for questions to answers is your second flashcard. For number 2 for questions to answer, it says, during imperialism, the United States wanted the Caribbean and the Pacific Islands. Why did they want both? What countries did the U.S. receive after the Spanish-American War? All right, so we want them for different reasons. We want the Caribbean because of trying to get sugar from the Caribbean. So we want them for natural resources. And we want the Pacific Islands to get to China. So we want the Caribbean for natural resources, sugar. And we want the Pacific Islands because we want to get to China. And then it says, what countries did the U.S. receive after the Spanish-American War? We get 3, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Technically, we get Cuba too, but Cuba immediately becomes its own country. All right. For your third flashcard, it says Emilio Aguinaldo. You want to know that he was a Filipino who fought against U.S. imperialism. Now, we need to probably understand what imperialism is as well. If we don't already have that definition, we want to get it down. So imperialism is where we acquire colonies around the world. So this is where you begin to take over other countries. So acquire colonies around the world. Your next flashcard is the Roosevelt Corollary. And the Roosevelt Corollary, you're going to want to write down this bottom point right here, which is the U.S. has the right to intervene if a nation has trouble paying its debts. This is an expansion of the Monroe Doctrine. So there's this bottom point right here. The U.S. has a right to intervene if a nation has trouble paying its debts. For the Panama Canal, you want to just write down that this connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. So the Panama Canal connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. For number 3, it says describe how the U.S. received the Panama Canal. We get it because we help Colombia get its independence. We help Colombia get its independence. That's number 3 for your questions to answers. Next, we have the Lusitania. For the Lusitania, you just want this first definition on this slide. It says a cruise ship that was sunk by Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare. It was a really, really nice cruise ship that the Germans sank. The United States had 128 people on it, so because of that, when they died, the U.S. got really mad about it. Your next term is the Zimmermann telegram. The Zimmermann telegram is where Germany asked Mexico to attack the United States. This is both during World War I. These are both causes of World War I, which we already wrote down for number 4. Next, we have the Great Migration. Great Migration's definitions right here. It's a mass movement of black people from the south to the north. So it's a movement of black people from the south to the north. The reason why they're moving is for jobs. Next, you have the Espionage Act. The Espionage Act made it illegal to interfere with the draft. You couldn't interfere or make critical statements of the government. You want that little bullet point right there. And then we have Eugene Debs. Eugene Debs is going to violate this act. He was a socialist leader who was imprisoned because he criticized the government. This is him right here. He actually ran for president while he was in prison. So he's a socialist leader who was imprisoned for his criticism of the government. All right, let's now go down to number 5. It says, how did World War I affect home life? You should include Eugene Debs, Great Migration, and Espionage Act. So what I would write down for this is that the Great Migration is going to cause for black people to move from the south to the north. Rights became more restrictive with the Espionage Act. Remember, you can't talk bad about the government anymore. And this caused people to protest, like Eugene Debs. So the Great Migration caused for black people to move from the south to the north. Rights were restricted with the Espionage Act, which caused people to protest, like Eugene Debs. All right, going back up to flashcards, we're now going to go to Wilson's 14 points, which is in League of Nations. This was our plan for world peace after World War I. Now, it doesn't work, and we know it doesn't work because we have World War II. But this was our plan for peace after World War I. All right. 18th Amendment bans alcohol. 19th Amendment, women get the right to vote. 18th Amendment bans alcohol. 19th Amendment, women get the right to vote. Now, during this time, we're also going to be fearful of communism. So the first Red Scare is where we're scared of communism and we limit immigrants from Europe because of it. So all 3 of these flashcards are right here. 18th Amendment bans alcohol. 19th Amendment, women get right to vote. First Red Scare, scared of communism, limit immigrants from Europe because of it. Which then, if you go down to number 6 on your questions and answers, what did the United States start to restrict? Immigrants coming from Russia and Eastern Europe after World War I. I think that should say why did, but and it's because we were scared of communism. For your number 16 for flashcard, the Model T, it's the first mass-produced car. It wasn't the first car, but it's the first mass-produced car. It's made by Henry Ford. That's why he's on the flashcard as well. The Harlem Renaissance is a cultural movement that showed what it was like to be black in America. Cultural movement that showed what it was like to be black in America. And you need, for your 18th flashcard, some artists who were in the Harlem Renaissance. And those artists, I would write down Louis Armstrong and Langston Hughes. Those are the 2 most famous, Louis Armstrong and Langston Hughes. And then for your last one, impact of the radio. It's going to create a common culture. It's not written word for word right here, but it creates a common culture. Which, if you look at number 7, what for your questions and answers, what did the radio help to establish during the 1920s? Common culture. For these 2 pictures at the bottom, it says, boys remember the Maine. What that picture is of is the USS Maine, which started the Spanish-American War. And then the other picture, it says, must Liberty's light go out? It's the espionage bill grabbing Lady Liberty's torch. What that picture is showing is that the Espionage Act takes away people's freedom because you can't talk bad about the government. And then you can just cross out the back part of this review and you are done.